Imagine countries from all around the world coming together to tackle one of the biggest challenges we face: climate change. That's exactly what the Kyoto Protocol was meant to do. It was a global agreement that aimed to reduce the amount of harmful gases we release into the atmosphere. Today, we'll explore Canada's involvement in the Kyoto Protocol, why it decided to withdraw, and what that decision meant for the country and the world. Let's dive into the history of Canada's environmental commitments and see how they've evolved. Brought to you by Super Simple Sheets. From coast to coast, worksheets that work. Discover the full range of what we offer at supersimplesheets.com. Section 1. What was the Kyoto Protocol? The Kyoto Protocol was created in 1997 as an international agreement to fight climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Countries that signed it agreed to cut their emissions of gases like carbon dioxide, which are responsible for warming the Earth. The goal was to prevent dangerous levels of global warming, and the agreement focused mostly on developed countries, like Canada, because they were historically responsible for most of these emissions. Under the protocol, developed nations were supposed to reduce their emissions by an average of 5% compared to their 1990 levels by the year 2012. Canada, which signed on, committed to cutting its emissions by 6%. This made the country one of the early supporters of the agreement, showing that it wanted to take a lead in the fight against climate change. Section 2. Canada's challenges with meeting Kyoto targets. While Canada agreed to the Kyoto Protocol's goals, the country soon faced major challenges. One of the main reasons was the growth of its oil and gas industry, particularly in Alberta's oil sands. Extracting oil from the oil sands is energy-intensive and creates large amounts of greenhouse gases. This made it harder for Canada to reduce its emissions. By 2005, instead of reducing emissions, Canada's greenhouse gas levels had increased by 30% compared to 1990. This put the country far off track from its Kyoto targets. Other factors that made it difficult for Canada to meet its goals included population growth and the country's cold climate, which increased energy use for heating. Section 3. Why did Canada withdraw? In 2011, Canada made the controversial decision to withdraw from the Kyoto Protocol. But why? One major reason was economic concerns. The government at the time argued that meeting the Kyoto targets would cost billions of dollars and harm Canada's economy, particularly industries like oil and gas, that were crucial for jobs and growth. Another issue was fairness. Canada's government felt that the Kyoto Protocol was unfair because it required developed countries to reduce emissions but didn't set the same requirements for developing countries like China and India, which were rapidly growing and contributing more to global emissions. This made it hard for Canada to compete economically while reducing emissions. By withdrawing, Canada avoided penalties for failing to meet its targets, but also faced criticism from environmental groups and other countries for backing out of the agreement. Section 4. What happened after the withdrawal? After withdrawing from the Kyoto Protocol, Canada continued to face challenges in reducing its emissions. While some provinces, like British Columbia, took significant steps to reduce greenhouse gases, such as introducing carbon taxes, Canada's national emissions continued to rise. However, Canada didn't abandon its environmental commitments entirely. In 2015, the country signed the Paris Agreement, a new global climate change agreement that replaced the Kyoto Protocol. The Paris Agreement allowed each country to set its own goals for reducing emissions, making it more flexible than Kyoto. Canada's goal under this new agreement is to reduce emissions by 30% below 2005 levels by 2030. Meeting these new goals will still require a lot of work. Canada's reliance on oil and gas makes it difficult to significantly cut emissions. But there's hope that new technologies and policies will help the country make progress. What we've learned: Canada's journey with the Kyoto Protocol shows how difficult it can be for countries to balance environmental commitments with economic realities. While Canada initially showed leadership by signing the agreement, challenges in reducing emissions led to its eventual withdrawal. However, Canada continues to be part of the global fight against climate change, with new goals set under the Paris Agreement. The lesson here is that protecting the planet is a long-term commitment, and every country, including Canada, has a role to play in finding solutions. Thanks for watching. Simplify your teaching journey with super simple sheets. Across Canada, we're known for our ready-to-use, curriculum-aligned worksheets. Dive into our educational solutions at supersimplesheets.com. Super Simple Sheets. From coast to coast, worksheets that work.